All right, so driving the 2024 Ford Bronco Sport Outer Banks. This is my first time driving a Bronco Sport. I've driven the regular Bronco, and I've spent the last few days with this Bronco Sport actually, and huge thanks to Performance Ford here in Bountiful. They actually reached out to KSL and asked if we would do a special review on their Bronco Sport, so here we are. So after the last about 100 miles that I've put on the Bronco Sport, I definitely have some interesting thoughts about this car. So it's cool to kind of like drive this with the regular Bronco in mind, because you can definitely feel, and Ford I think did a pretty good job at translating a lot, not all, but a lot of the regular Bronco feel in some ways. I don't want to make it sound like this is like a real full-size Bronco, but you can get like the essence of the Bronco in this car, which I think is kind of cool. Like, it definitely feels more off-road and rugged than your standard you know, mid-size compact crossover. This is probably, you know, right in line with the price point of like the CR-V Touring Hybrid and you know, the CX-5 and stuff like that. And this definitely feels, and you can probably tell from maybe even the camera, this is more trucky, this is more bouncy, this is more rough to drive around town, which I wasn't like totally expecting. I kind of was surprised at like how much Ford has committed to the ruggedness, you know, appeal, the rugged appeal here in the Bronco Sport, which I don't know if a lot of buyers are thinking, I want to take my Bronco Sport off-road and do all this crazy stuff with it, but that's kind of how this feels. It was engineered. And so just be aware of that if you are. And I know a lot of people do like that. I know that people like the more like trucky, kind of rougher, you know, kind of feels more old drive than like just something that's smooth and cushy and more car-like. This definitely feels more truck-like. Another thing that I've really loved about it is just like how open it is. Like, I don't know if you can tell, but I don't remember the last time I had like this much headroom. It's actually pretty sweet. And I'm 5'9". I'm not like super tall, but it's really nice to have like so much room in here. It's the boxy shape. Well, it looks great, you know, out from the outside aesthetically for sure, but it lends itself to a very open and feeling cabin, which is really nice. You can see out really well. The seating position's awesome. It's really high. You can if visibility is important to you and you like sitting up high, I think you're going to really like this Bronco Sport. So a couple of things that I've really enjoyed about it too is just, I love how it's styled. I think the exterior styling is pretty cool. I've wanted to drive one ever since they've come out. I don't know how I haven't yet, but I think it looks neat. It gets more attention and more smiles than people, than like, you know, any CR-V could ever dream of. So it definitely like looks cool. And I like how the inside looks too. I think it's a really just like nice design. I couldn't say that the materials are very good. There's a ton of hard plastic, you know, but that's kind of comes with the territory with Ford, and this being more geared toward off-roading. And so anyway, you know, you're kind of expecting that if this is what you're looking at. A couple other things that I've caught my attention is, I'm just kind of going off the cuff here, but fuel economy actually has been surprisingly like pretty great. So the Outer Banks trim, which this one is, comes with the 181 horsepower turbocharged 3-cylinder. It's like a 1.3 liter 3-cylinder, I think. And you know, I'll talk about that in just a second, but I will say it does get pretty great fuel economy. For the past 100 miles, and I have been commuting a fair number of those, I've been averaging just over 27 miles per gallon, which is not bad at all. Now, going back to this engine though, it's definitely punchy. I would probably just spring for the Badlands trim, which gives you a little bit of a lift and I think some beefier tires, but it also gets you the bigger 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, which puts out, I want to say it's like 250 horsepower, 270 horsepower. Like that thing would scoot. This is, there's okay punch there thanks to the turbocharger, but it sounds pretty gravelly. It sounds pretty rough, and I question how long it'll last. I don't know if that's too bold to say, but I really do wonder how long this engine will last. It just doesn't sound all that refined, especially coupled with the this 8-speed automatic transmission. It just kind of feels a little janky sometimes. Definitely not the most refined powertrain, and again, only time will tell about how you know, how long this engine and transmission will last. I could be wrong. Maybe it'll last a long time. There's Lexus GX 460 that just passed, and that thing's gonna last a while. I don't know about this, but maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. A couple other things too is these seats actually up here. They're not super big. They're kind of small seats, but I'm 5'9", about 180 pounds, and they're nice and squishy and comfortable. That's one thing that I think Ford does really well, is they just make pretty comfy seats. And the heated seat functionality in here is some of the best I've ever felt. It's super, super warm. It's very toasty. And I even had to turn it down, which I rarely do because I love heated seats and just like feeling it on my back. But they're very warm. I wish I could say the same thing about the heated steering wheel. It's okay. It's definitely not super warm, but it's better than nothing. Just a couple other things too. Cargo space is pretty great. Obviously the boxy shape gives you like a lot of room to put stuff in there, which is pretty cool. Really like it. Backseat space is not amazing. Definitely not up to where some of the competition is. It's fairly tight. The back seat is comfortable. It feels good to sit in. It's just like leg and knee room isn't anything crazy. So another thing that I've noticed too is this infotainment, which I'm usually a pretty good fan of the sync system. This one, for whatever reason, and it's probably my own user error, I couldn't get my phone to, like, I've got it connected, but it will never pull it up for Bluetooth. And I was kind of surprised too, unless I've missed something. This doesn't have wireless Apple CarPlay, which I think just now, like, why can't we just make that a standard thing? Especially this is like 42 grand. Or close to that, you know, why not? I've had cars that have cost much less expensive that have, or much less money, and they have, you know, wireless Apple CarPlay. As far as my driving experience goes, I kind of already mentioned a little bit of that. The powertrain definitely feels a little janky. It's not the most refined thing I've ever driven. The braking feel is, it's just, I don't know, it's hard to predict sometimes. Like, yeah, it's okay. The thing that really, that I can't get used to is the throttle response. I was telling my wife last night that this might be the most, one of the most sensitive gas pedals I've ever experienced. Like, especially like on the freeway. I'm not kidding. Commuting back on the freeway, you have to like feather the gas pedal with like the tip of your big toe, because even like a quarter inch, even like barely any pressure on that thing, and you're going to be moving forward pretty briskly. And so you really kind of have to adjust how much pressure you put on the pedal, because you don't need much, especially like, again, on a flat when you're just kind of cruising. So you kind of have to be mindful of that. But overall, I think that this is like a pretty cool option. Like, if you're, you know, you don't want a CR-V, you don't want a RAV4, you don't want, you know, the usual suspects, and you want something that's a little bit more off-road ready, then I think you're gonna actually be pretty happy with this thing. It is like 42 grand. And again, I would just go for the Badlands trim. It's like $1,000 or $2,000 more, but I think you get way more power, and you get a lift, and you just get more. Like, I would just go for that trim. Like, this is fine, but for a little bit more, I think you get a lot more value. So anyway, those are my thoughts, and let me know if you've bought a Bronco Sport, especially if you've had it a while. Let us know in the comments like what the reliability's been like, and has it lasted? Has it given you problems? Have you enjoyed it? Because yeah, I think that, you know, you should definitely give it a shot. It's like a super cool alternative that I don't know that many people still think of. I think they just think, oh, well, it's not a real Bronco, so I don't know if I'm interested in that. But this is like a cool kind of middle ground that I think a lot of buyers would be happy with. So anyway, thanks guys. We'll see you later.